Good morning, everybody. Pastor Nate Borman, one of the pastors at Mount Lebanon Lutheran Church, here for a Monday, Wednesday, Friday devotional for you. I'm out here in my patio at home, just loving the sunshine, just loving the birds, just soaking it in, just soaking up the joy of Easter that's still around today. It's Monday, but Jesus is still alive, and my God, as we talked about yesterday, my God is still rolling stones away. He's risen. Jesus is really alive, and that makes today a good day. Even if the sun wasn't out, even if I couldn't sit on my patio, that today would still be a good day. Today we finished up Exodus last week on Saturday. We're going to spend 2 days in the book of Proverbs, and then we're going to get into the Gospel of Matthew. We're going to read our way through that starting on Wednesday. But today I want to just talk to you a little bit about Proverbs and about holding God's word, keeping God's word close to your heart. See, one of the things you'll find about the book of Proverbs, and this is why we kind of do Proverbs in snippets, is that Proverbs is at the same time easy and hard. It's easy because there's not much in Proverbs that you have to say, I wonder what he means. Some of the language, some of the metaphors are a little bit difficult, but at the end of the day, what the wisdom that Solomon drops, the bars that he drops, they're quite straightforward. They're quite simple. You can read them. You can read 2 verses and say, I got something out of that. They're easy to understand. In some ways they're even easy to put into practice because they're practical. The book of Proverbs is very practical and down to earth, and for our use in the moment, right? We can put it to work. But one of the things that makes the book of Proverbs hard is that you read through a chapter and you feel like, what? There's so much happening in a chapter because, there's 2 verses that talk about money. There's another 2 verses that talk about time. There's 2 verses. There's another verse that talks about friendship. There's another verse that talks about anger, right? There's just topic after topic after topic. It doesn't always, and sometimes it's not really organized according to themes. And like, I'm going to give you drop wisdom about parenting right now. That's not the way it's organized. There is another organization, but that's another study a little bit, and takes a little bit more work to see it. So the book of Proverbs is at the same time easy and hard. So as you read it today and tomorrow, what I'll challenge you to do is just pick out 1 or 2 verses, 1 or 2 truths, maybe 2 related truths that you say, I'm gonna put this on my mirror, I'm gonna drop this in my heart, and I'm gonna meditate on it, I'm gonna think about it, and I'm gonna try, one thing at a time. Is one of my mottos, just one thing at a time. I'm gonna think about this, I'm gonna meditate on this, and that's all. That's what I'm going to do, right? So one thing at a time. So pick a proverb, pick a truth, and think about it. What I want to talk to you about today is this shows up in Proverbs chapter 3. Is what I want you to think about today is holding fast and keeping God's word close. In chapter 3, early verses, right before he says, trust, the verses that everybody seems to know, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. Right before that, he says, keep my teaching, he says, keep my teaching close to your heart, keep my teaching close to you. And throughout the book of chapter 3, at least, he says, these are the blessings that come when you keep my word close to your heart, right? But I want to flip that on its head and say, what are you up against in your day-to-day life that makes it hard to hold on to truth? It's easy, isn't it? It's easy for us to have joy and confidence on Easter morning when we celebrate and shout with all of God's people because he's alive, he's risen. We're singing. It's the singing's great, the worship is great, it's all wonderful. We love it, right? It's a joyful experience, right? But what happens as soon as you walk out into the world, right? It's not as clean, it's not as easy, it's much more difficult because now one of the things I was meditating on over the weekend is how powerful it is when we commiserate together, when we hang out together as a body of believers, right? Because when we commiserate with other people, like it's good, we got to be part of the world, right? We got to live with people in the world. But when we commiserate with other people who don't share our faith, when we're hanging out with people who don't share our faith, that we certainly want to do that. But what happens? What kind of pressures come to us when we're hanging out with people who aren't part of our circle of faith, right? There's pressure that comes, and sometimes it's subtle and silent and quiet and sneaky, and you may not even know that you're being pressured into something. But there is a pressure, right? We walk out of our church and out of our Bible study and out of our homes, and we enter a world that's pressing on us, trying to form us into their mold, right? This is the pressure that we face every single day as we live out our lives. And this is why we want to keep God's we want to keep God's truth close to our hearts, right? We keep God's word close to our hearts because as we go into the world, we want to make sure that we are formed not by the world, but by the truth of God that's close to our hearts. See, everywhere you go, listen, you have to understand this. Everywhere we go in our lives, someone is always trying to shape us. Maybe they're not doing it intentionally, but something and someone is always trying to shape us. And the question is, who is going to be the one shaping us? You and I, right? As children of God, we want God to be the one shaping us. That's why it's important for us to be in Bible study. That's why it's important for us to be in God's Word. That's why the words that Solomon says in chapter 3, let faithfulness, let God's word, let my truth never leave you. Bind it on your heart. Keep it close to you, right? He's not talking about binding it and tying a Bible to your chest, but he is saying, keep my word so close to you that my word, even when you go out into the world, is the one shaping you. Right? See, and this is when Christians start to make a difference in the world. When we are shaped and formed by God's world, and we're not being conformed to the ways of the world, rather we are being conformed to the ways and likeness of God, then, right, we go into the world and we make a difference. Right? So this is why we keep God's word close to us. This is why on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, it's so important for us to be meditating on God's word. This is why we need to be commiserating and hanging out with the body of believers. This is why we need to be in God's word together, because we will be formed by something, and it's better, far better, for us to be formed by God and to be conformed to his likeness. So let faithfulness, let God's word, let God's truth never leave you. Bind it on your heart, tie it around your forehead, right? Keep it close. Keep it close. Hold it tight. Have a great day, everybody, as you revel in the glory of the risen Christ. Enjoy the sun, because just as Jesus rose on Easter morning and resurrection dawned, so also the sun rises on our hearts today. God grant you joy through his Spirit. Have a great day, everybody. The Lord be with you all and grant you his peace.